I want to welcome JC Glick. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Commit Foundation. Good to see you, JC.
Good to see you. Thanks, brother.
And so, JC, you served 20 years in the military over the course of your Army career. You did 7 years in the Ranger Regiment, serving in two Ranger battalions as well as regimental headquarters, participating in the Best Ranger competition, which I want to hear about, and over 7.5 years of command time with 11 combat deployments and numerous operational deployments around the world. You're also the author of two books. One including A Light in the World, A Light in the Darkness, Leadership Development for the Unknown. In 2017, you were selected as a TEDx speaker and delivered Rethinking Leadership for TEDx, which is awesome. You're also a professor at St. John's University in Queens, and you're doing graduate work now, a doctoral degree at Columbia University. You're a very busy man, and so I appreciate your time. And I'd be remiss not to say you're also my partner in our men's group, Resilience Optimized, which we're finishing up our first cohort not too long in the distant future.
Yeah, and your friend. I mean, don't forget that. That's like the most important title I got on this one.
And I agree, my friend as well. The most important title. All the other stuff is like, secondary. You've done some things, then you're my friend. So the purpose of this conversation is really to kind of dive into Commit, what Commit is about. But I think it's really important for the listening viewing audience to get a sense of like, what are you committed to that leads you to want to serve your fellow human beings, in this case, fellow veterans, because you've been doing yeoman's work in that space for an awful long time. So talk a little about yourself and what kind of drives you in this direction.
I'll tell you that first question is really, I want to answer that question with the simple part up front. And I am committed to making the whole world better. Whatever I can touch, I want to make better than when I found it. And one of the vessels that I get to use right now as the CEO at Commit is using veterans to do that, right? So I think a lot of veteran service organizations who all do amazing work, right? I really appreciate all the work they're doing. And I think that there's goodness in just serving veterans. But what's really unique about Commit and who Commit serves is we're serving the future leaders of this country and this world, right? The not just government leaders, but I'm talking business leaders. I'm talking academic leaders. I'm talking philanthropic leaders. We serve those folks that are going to continue to lead this country and the world for the next 3 to 4 decades. And it's really, I think we could say, well, we're committed to veterans. And of course we are. We are taking these high potential veterans as they integrate into a new world, new chapter, and we're setting them up for success so that they can make the world around them better, right? Most of these individuals have already performed well, and forget about just their military performance. Think about they're the 1% that raised their hands and said they'll do military service. So they've already got a service mindset. And now what we're trying to do is take that mindset and take a couple of other key kind of characteristics and really make it so that we're getting exactly the right person who's going to lead and going to give back. And that's certainly not like, well, they have to have a selfless job. They can have a quote unquote selfish job. Like if they want to create generational wealth for themselves, great. Like I want to support that because I know that if we do that, we're helping generations. We're absolutely helping philanthropic goals. I think we're absolutely helping, people who do that actually spend more time on giving their time, giving their experience. So there is I don't think there's a loss in this piece. Like we are committed to making the world better. And we just happen to be doing it through these amazing veterans and setting them up for success.
I like that. Visually, I can see that, how powerful that is, kind of setting the stage for the future leaders, not just of America, but of the globe in many different fields of endeavor, academic, education, as you said, or philanthropic, or business, or government, whatever happens to be. So that's definitely a beautiful vision. You use the word transition, and obviously that's one of the things we'll talk about in terms of what commit helps people do. But I'm curious about yours. What was yours like? What did you learn from that? What are you taking those lessons, and how are they affecting your work at commit?
I'll tell you, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I used to talk about how I went through three transitions, right? I transitioned from deploying all the time to not deploying. And I argued that that was the hardest deployment. That was the hardest transition. Then I transitioned and I made like the conventional transition of retiring from the military. That was my second transition, taking off the uniform, not wearing a uniform anymore. And then I say I made the third transition was figuring out all the things that I didn't know over a course of about 5 years and making that reflective realization of I didn't do this very well. And here's how I need to adjust to reorient. I retired in 2015. I did not go through a transition program. The closest thing I had, and I'm really very thankful, is I had the Aspen Institute, and I was selected as a Liberty Fellow. And the Aspen Institute, as I look back on it, I don't know that I appreciated it at the time. I mean, I did. It was a great experience, but what I didn't appreciate at the time is it actually helped me transition. And they're very deliberate in getting people at an inflection point in their life. For me, it was when I was leaving the military. And I don't think it was intentional that it worked out this way, but it did. And it really helped a lot of, I think my transition would have been worse. I think that now what I'd say is life is transitory, right? I wouldn't say I had three transition. I'd say, no, life's transitory. I transition all the time, right? I mean, my kids graduate high school, and then they graduate college, and they get a new job, and then they get married, and then, right? So things happen, and we have to adapt to those things. I think mine personally, the hardest one for me was when I stopped deploying, and 18 months after my first deployment was my first of four suicide attempts. I was doing really well on the outside, right? I had been selected for battalion command, and even after that, so I had two attempts while I was in uniform and two attempts once I was out of uniform. And I'll tell you that if you looked from the outside, a successful career on both sides of that. I got out. I immediately started making money. I wrote a book. It got published. It was being used by the NFL and by Microsoft. And if you looked from the outside and saw, you'd say, "Oh, he's doing great." But it wasn't, because I didn't, like, I had lost my identity and didn't know what I was. Like, I had spent my entire life, I'm a ranger. That's what I am. I'm a special operator. And then I wasn't anymore. So what am I? And I probably wasn't really good at a lot of I wasn't good at being a partner. I was I was moderately okay at being a father. Um, at least I understood the concept, but I wasn't great maybe in execution. And so I didn't know who I was. Um, Purpose in the military, it's one of the few places where you can truly elevate what you say your purpose is, and it's kind of accurate. I mean, like, hey, I've sworn to protect and defend the Constitution. That's a pretty cool purpose, right? Defeat the enemies of my nation. Well, that's a pretty cool purpose. And you can say that, and it's not wrong. When you don't do that, though, what do you do? Everything else seems like, okay, so now what's my grand purpose? What I've come to realize is that wasn't my grand purpose when I served either. My grand purpose was in every single moment. My purpose wasn't grand. It was just finding purpose in every moment. Hey, my purpose right now is to do this, and then this, and then this. Maybe there was an overarching one, but I found purpose in every moment. And so when I left, I didn't know that. And so I was looking for this grand purpose. I don't think that military folks are alone in that. I think a lot of people leave, they stop doing something that they've done for a long time and they can't find their purpose. Like they don't, and we have a narrative in the world that says you have to find this grand purpose. And I think that a lot of times we spend so much time looking for a grand purpose that we actually miss finding purpose in every moment. If you find purpose in every moment, then you can look back and say you've lived a life of purpose. And I think we've kind of got it a little bit backwards. And then the final thing is, I was really quick to get out of the military. Like I was a little disillusioned by a couple of things that happened. My head was not right. So I ran out of the gun club and I wanted to separate everything about it from me except kind of my background. And what I realized like 5 years later was I was lonely. There was a bunch of stuff I really liked in the gun club. I liked the people for the most part. Not all of them, but that's life, right? But the majority, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, now to kind of wrap it all together, like I'm finally, and it took me a long time to get to where I am, where I know what my identity is, right? I am Jen's husband and I'm Casey, Corbett and Steve's dad. And I'm, Grace, Brennan and Isabel's stepdad. And oh yeah, and I also happen to be a CEO and some other stuff. But I know who I know what's important and who I am, and I'm very comfortable with that. I know that my purpose is in every moment. I know that right now my purpose is talking to you and sharing the story. Um, and I know my tribe, right? It's different than the military where my tribe was given to me. I have to actually seek out my tribe. But I mean, I look at us, we've been in the same tribe for almost 12 years now.
Yeah.
And you helped me a lot through a lot of those times, and you stuck with me when I probably wasn't the easiest guy to stick with. And so, if we're going to get iteratively better as a society, we've got to take the lessons I learned that took me almost a decade to figure out to get to where I am now, where I'm happier than I've ever been in my life, and go, okay, how do we make sure that we can we can shorten that timeline so we can get others where they need to be so they can start leading right away. They can start giving back and making
Mhm.
impact wherever they go.
That's a kind of great transition to talk more about commit. But I just want to share this with you. Fascinating that you brought up being finding purpose in the moment. You actually wrote an article about that a while back. Literally yesterday, I got tagged. I posted it in one of the networks I'm part of, and someone responded to it. Like this is months ago. Responded to it yesterday, brought it back up in conversation. So I literally saw that article yesterday, and there's a Latin phrase about living in the moment, being finding purpose in the moment. And this gentleman, we're going back and forth about your article. It was like, I might get that as a tattoo. It was so impactful to him. I didn't get a chance to share that with you offline, but I'm like, oh my God, it's so funny you bring up finding purpose in the moment.
I
So
love
your
that.
your writing is having huge impacts, which
I
is
love
really
that.
cool.
That makes me happy. Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that because today I just got a notice that somebody said, "Could you please put this on YouTube?" So I guess I'm going to go find because I gave a little talk to kind of
Oh,
usher the article out there, and I explained it, and I need to put it on YouTube.
once it's on YouTube, send it to me because I want to send it to this group that's having a conversation about your article. That's awesome. And I do want to transition to the conversation about commit, but you talked about the challenges of going from what's the big purpose, and like a lot of people have that kind of challenge in life to like finding purpose in every moment. I'm wondering for you, like what were there transition moments? You're like you had the realization around that. Was there one moment? How did you go from this to like in the moment looking for purpose?
So, one of the great things about going back to school as an older guy is you really pay attention to what you're learning and what you're reading. Right? I read something this past summer in the course. And it's about the importance of in adult learning, the importance of reflection, right? Creating time for reflection. And it's really come together for me in the last few months where I've realized that, it's a misnomer to say the learning happens in the challenge. It doesn't. Sometimes you just go through the challenge with your head down, you gut it out, and you get through it and you move on.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes, well, learning happens in the loss. Sometimes you just lose. Learning happens in reflection.
Mm.
And so I think that regardless of maybe personally how bad my transition was, bad or good. I mean, there were good moments of it as well. I I had the privilege of reflecting. And I think Aspen helped set the conditions for that. I have like the best partner in the world in Jen who
Yes, you do.
forces me to kind of reflect and can see, when I start to feel, poly poopy pants, she goes, "Hey, think about this." And I think that those moments, I actually thought and said, okay, well, what did I get out of that? How do I actually learn from that and not just record it? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. Right.
yes,
Right.
this happened. Okay, but and I'll be honest with you, there were times I did not learn. I did not reflect. I did the same thing like three or four times until I was able to reflect and go, oh, this is kind of how that happened. And okay, so I've got to set the conditions differently here in the future. And hey, maybe framing is the right way. And I think that in reflection, you can challenge assumptions, right? I mean, if you look at a learning model, like the first stage of it is you have a disorienting dilemma, right? So something happens and you're discombobulated. And then there's a whole bunch, a guy named Mesro has a whole bunch of steps. But to me, I think that once we do that, it's how we interact with that disorientation, that discomfort, that moment, right? That grip moment, so that we can reflect and go, okay, well, I think it's like this, and challenge that, like, oh, wait, maybe it's not like that. Right. So I think I was very much like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? And then I literally one day just said, what if what if I don't just have one purpose? Right? I don't. And I started to think like I have to be a good partner. I have to be a good dad. I have to be a good friend. I have to be good at my job. Like I have a bunch of things that are a purpose. Is there some overarching thing? I guess my purpose is to be a good person, but that looks different for everybody. So instead of trying to align with a whole bunch of perspectives that may or may not be compatible with mine, right? I just find purpose in what I'm doing in the moment. I know what my intent is. My intent is to be what I believe is a good person. Let's just do the things that we think will lead to that. And I don't get it right 50% of the time, but I learn from it and I reflect on it and I try to do better. And, new things come up and I screw those up. And I'm human, so I get ticked off at people and I lose my temper and I'm not my best self. But I think that, it's you talk about self-mastery, and we were just talking about that earlier. And I think the self-mastery is when you can really start to make the flash to bang time shorter on
Mm.
reaction to respond, right? And like the sooner we can recognize like, oh god, nope, that's
Yeah.
a reactive, let's whoop back up and do this. And the faster we can do that, I think the better we are. And I think that's self-mastery, is when that flash to bang goes, you almost don't get into the reacting. You're kind of like this zen kind of person. And I think it's aspirational. I'm not sure it's achievable, but it's not it but it's certainly worth trying, right?
100% agree with you. It's like, our mutual friend Dennis Stoikis talks about in his book, 1% better every day. Like you're attempting to move yourself in that direction, a better human, a better father, better son, better, husband, all the different things. And I love the fact that you acknowledge your own publicly, foibles. Like, hey, you're not perfect. No one is perfect. And it's really freeing for people to see someone like you who they can hold up in high regard. And they do. So I talk to people about you, but to also recognize, like, man, he's human and he acknowledges mistakes and he seeks to fix them and move to a higher level of functioning, whatever that might be for you. Which is a beautiful thing, is it's permission given to other people watching, so they can recognize the same in themselves. Like, yeah, we F up all the time. We're human beings, as you said. Yeah. And we can try better. We can work a little bit harder next time. And surround yourself with a good team. I mean, you have Jen. You can't beat that.
Oh, and she absolutely keeps me straight. And she tells me
Yeah,
like,
no.
hey, when I'm not when I'm off course and
Yeah.
when I'm not I mean, she's the one who's really pushed being more public about kind of my mistakes, because I frequently write and talk about aspirational things like we should do this, we should do this. In fact, it was right after the article on purpose. I wrote that and she said, hey, I want to talk to you about this. She goes, I remember when you were telling me X, Y, and Z, and it was negative. It was like, I don't know what I should be doing. This is stupid, right? I can't do this. I can't hack this. I'm like, yeah, I've done that. She goes, but if I read this article, it sounds like you got it all figured out. And I'm like, holy cow, yeah. And she goes, so how do you think that makes other people feel when they read this? And that here you are, and you got it all figured out. Now that maybe they feel bad because they don't have it all figured out, because they don't sometimes taking out the garbage, because I think that's an example I use is like find purpose in taking out the garbage. I don't always find purpose in taking out the garbage. Sometimes it's just a pain in the rear. It's just something I got to do. And so she has been the one who's really pushed me. And I wrote an article literally the next day about, hey, I share ideas. That doesn't mean I do them perfectly all the time. I think, here's the one thing I know. Anybody that tells you they've got it all figured out, they're either an ass or they're lying. And most of the time, both.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time when I make a mistake, I'm the first one to go, hey, I didn't show up my best self. This is what I did. This is how I try to do it. And there's a fear loop that happens here that Tony Blauer talks about a lot. But for me, the fear loop is I keep admitting like, oh, I screwed up, I screwed up, I screwed up. And I screw up a lot because I'm a human. People think all you do is screw up. And I have to fight that fear because I don't want people to think like, man, that Glick's always jacked up. But I also want to make sure that like I do put out a bunch of aspirational ideas.
Yeah.
I want people to believe in those ideas and just know that's the whole reason they're aspirational. If they were like life hacks, you just do them. It's what you want to do.
Which is wonderful, is that you're kind of humanizing the growth process. Like one step forward, half a step back, two steps forward, one step back. You might go to the left accidentally, you fall off the cliff a few times, get back up, you keep going.
Yep.
And one of the many things that's really great about your writing, because I've seen, I read your writing, but you'll, like on LinkedIn, for instance, when you actually write up about an article you just wrote, you'll actually talk about some of the conversations you and Jen had. Just really nice.
She's my person.
Yeah.
I think my ex-wife is a wonderful human being. And I love that we have 3 children together, and I love her as a human. Like she is an amazing, like I have not one negative thing. And if I look back at that relationship, I did more harm to that relationship than she ever did.
Mm.
But the truth is, Jen is the person I'm supposed to be with. And
Oh.
Jen like truly forces me to be a better person. And there's pride and guilt in both of that. Like I don't know. I wish I had been able to do that for the mother of my children, because I do. I think she's wonderful, but I'm proud that I get to do it with Jen.
Right. You both are very fortunate.
Mm.
So
Well,
yeah, that's for sure.
I agree with half of that.
All right, so commit. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. Yeah, but walk us through like what was commit founded to do? What are some of the things it does presently? And I'd love for you to highlight the fact that what you've expanded its its focus and its reach to beyond just the military to the IC, the intelligence community, as well as our partner states or partner countries. So share us a little bit about commit and also down those little tangents too. I think that's awesome.
So Guy Filippelli and Anne-Marie started Commit in 2012. If it weren't for Anne-Marie, really being the driving factor, I we're not sitting here today having this conversation. And she shared with me that it was originally kind of started for someone who was in Charlie Company 175, which was the company I commanded. So it was kind of nice to hear that. And the vision was we have these really high performing, high potential veterans. Figure the top 4 or 5% of those that get out who, either commanded or were, wanted to continue, maybe the army wasn't right for them after 10 years, but it was like they still had this unbelievable drive to be better and to do something and to really contribute. And they created this amazing program where people are met where they are, right? The program is not, we are truly veteran centric, not curriculum centric, right? So a lot of programs rely on the curriculum, right? So, hey, you're going to come in, these are the things you're going to do. This is what you do on Tuesdays, what you do on Thursdays, right? I can legitimately tell you there aren't two programs that look the same out of the 5,000 veterans that we've served since 2012. There aren't two that are the same. We truly try to figure out what are the needs of the individual and how do we need to show them their needs? How do we need to support their needs? And what's the best way to be there for them? And so every support is bespoke to the individual. So they start with, an application. The application is really, really important to us because it lets us know, where's your head right now when you're about to enter the program. And sometimes you're 18 months out and sometimes you're 5 years removed, right? I mean, sometimes longer than that because we are a lifelong, like if you're a veteran and you have a desire to have further impact and you apply to the program, we're going to try to figure out how to help. So you do the application, you have a conversation with one of our director of veteran services who are amazing. And they really listen. They're listening to where is this person? And they've really seen it. And they're so good at what they do because they've seen a bunch, right? They're like, okay, okay, so maybe a little bit of this and some of this. And so then we have this one great program. It's called Pursue Your Purpose. It's one of a kind. It's completely unique. And the way we look at it is you come out of the military and you have a pretty decent values compass, right? So your values compass is really good. And you have a map that shows everywhere you've been, but we have to help you sketch out where you're going, right? Like, oh, what are the different directions? And we help you think through that and reflect and then through this pursue your purpose and these conversations, there's in land navigation, there's a thing called grid to magnetic. So your grid, the north on your map is not the same as your north, the magnetic north. It's what's called a GM angle, right? So your GM angle is a certain percent that you have to add or subtract when you take your compass heading versus your map heading. And all we do is know that your compass heading is calibrated for the military. So now we're just going to recalibrate it. We're going to look at your GM angle. What's the new north
Okay.
got to be,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
Then what we do is we connect you with an executive coach, all ICF certified, all have extensive experience, working with veterans. They are, key elements in the program. They're a critical requirement and one that we will have for a very long time because, all our participants love them. You get sessions, the number of sessions you need with an executive coach to help you think through some things, to help you do some stuff. You become a member of the community, which is an online platform that we actually encourage you to take a step further and like make a phone call and go visit somebody and have coffee with them. And but on there are mentors and people that are going through the course currently, people that have been through the course, people that are about to go through the course again because for whatever reason, hey, I had to transition again. I had to move, or the company that I was with, just went through downsizing and I was last hired, or whatever it was. And then we have this incredible network through our board, and I tell every nonprofit leader that I talk to, I have the best board in all of nonprofits. I love every single member of my board. And through them, we have this incredible network of people to connect our incredible veterans with. And, we make these great connections, whether they be, NFL franchise presidents or, private equity, and hedge fund owners and managers. And it's really amazing. You sit there and you're like, all these incredible people are part of the commit community. And, the power behind that is just amazing. And then the last thing about us, not the last thing, second to last thing, we have a workshop. So I'd say that about the top 10 to 11% of our team, of our community, of those that we select, goes to an in-person workshop where they really dive deep on stuff. We bring in mentors in person where they go through some stuff. Maybe they get some ideas on how to tweak this or that and maybe their elevator pitch or whatever else they're doing. But we're really focused on the strategic, right? Like, how are you seeing yourself? How are you looking at your life? We're not, I don't want a veteran to get out and get a job. That's easy. And there's a bunch of organizations that I don't want to say it's easy. That's minimizing the great work that other organizations do. Absolutely imperative that we make sure that they get work. And there's amazing Hire Our Heroes and the Honor Foundation. And there's so many good organizations that do make sure that veterans are getting something that will continue to sustain them. And that's really important. But we want to focus on, let's design your life. What does your life look like? Let's start there. One of the first things we have our people read is Tolstoy, How Much Land Does a Man Need? Right? Because we get asked all the time, like, what am I worth? Well, before we talk about what you're worth, let's talk about what you need. Right? Because that tends to give us a little bit. It's not that I don't want you to want for more. You can want for as much as you want, and I want you to go get it. But sometimes we have this pressure that we put a number and we say, I think I need to make this. Well, maybe, I don't know. Let's see what you need to make. And I'll tell you, I've never met anybody who didn't think they needed to make more than they actually really need to make. And so we want you to design your life, and then we want you to find a career, not a job. We want you to, really feel like you get up every day and you enjoy going to work, and not every day is unicorns and rainbows, and that's okay. But, what we're really happy with is, 95% of those that have gone through commit are satisfied with their current life. Compare that with like 82% of other veterans and a much lower percent of Americans. 73% of commit participants are satisfied with their current careers. This is very telling because only 43% of other veterans who get out are satisfied with their current careers. And then I just challenge people, go ahead and look at what the general population. And what I'm really proud of is about 60% of our population volunteers, right? They give back to their communities. And look, it's only about 10%, 12% higher than other veterans, but it's about 30 to 40% higher than the American population. So I think we're doing the right things. And then the last thing that we do is we're a lifelong organization. Like once you're in, you're in. You call in 10 years and say, I need help. We're going to figure out what you need. We're going to talk to you and we're going to try to figure out how to help you. We realized that we were doing two things. We were helping some communities that were not in our charter to help. And we were doing it without using anybody else's dollars. But when I saw this, I said, it makes total sense that we're supporting these folks. Why not just change our charter and change our mission? So we did. So the first group that we're supporting now, and on the 26th of July, we announced it, is the non-DoD intelligence community. So if you served in the CIA, the NSA, DIA, any of those organizations, anybody who's in the Intelligence Community Act, and you're transitioning out of government service, we're here. Fill out an application. We're going to support you. We're very excited to do that. I won't say the other group yet. I'll announce that in November.
Okay.
But there's another group of folks that we have been helping
Nice.
correctly. Other folks that, just like the intelligence community was out there on the battlefield with us, these people were out there on the battlefield with us. And in November, we'll announce a further expansion.
Nice.
And the one that I'm really excited about, and we've been doing this for about a year. So this started under Alex Krongardner, who was the CEO before me, another spectacular human being. There's a spouse program, and a lot of folks address the spouses of veterans just as that. You're the spouse of a veteran, so here's how you support your veteran spouse. And we don't do that. The same curriculum that we give to our veterans is like what we give to our spouses. We
Nice.
help them in their bespoke way, not in relation to their spouse, but in relation to their wants and desires and struggles. And like, we want to meet them where they are and help them with the things that they want. So it's terrific because we're seeing spouses who, hey, did this for X number of years. And now I want to do something else. Awesome. We are going to help you do that. So really proud of the spouse program.
I love
And
that.
we'll have an in-person spouse program in October.
That's beautiful, especially just because I know you're like a systems thinker, and it's so important to affect as many people within a particular system because it has the effects outwardly. And to look at spouses, not just like how can you help get the spouse to support their veteran partner, like as a unique individual who has needs, wants, and desires, is really, really important. So good on you guys for doing that.
They were well ahead of it, and all I did was say, "Holy cow, this is amazing! What more support do I give you?" Because it's really just a great program.
That's awesome. Very cool. So, like, I want the viewing and listening audience to know how they can support Commit, how they can learn more about Commit. If you're a veteran or spouse of a veteran, or part of the intelligence community, and you'd like to learn more. But also, if you're like, hey, I'd love to support them financially or in other ways, how can people go ahead and do those things?
Thank you. That's awesome. I love that. So, for either one, Go to commitfoundation.org and take a look. There's a place to apply and there's a place to donate. I'm going to tell
Nice.
you that the goal for us, so we serve about 1,400 veterans a year. 200,000 veterans get out every year. Now let's add the intelligence community, let's add spouses. We have to 10x that number.
Right.
The only way to do that is, the program is very scalable. And if anybody has the team to do it, it's the team at Commit. But we need the funds to do it. We need the funds to do it. So, what I'm really proud of is when people donate, 87% of their donation goes towards the actual veteran. The industry standards like 70%, and we're well above that. And we're going to try to get to 92% is the goal.
Nice.
That 92% is going to support the veteran. We are on average, we're supporting the veteran. We're making about a $14,000 to $15,000 investment in every veteran we serve, upwards of 20 to 25,000 for every veteran we serve, for some of them. And we see it as an investment. Like we don't want charity. We want an investment. We think that giving to Commit or investing in Commit is investing in the future of the country. The one stat that I didn't give you that I think is really important, 90% of Commit, people who have gone through Commit have a positive outlook on the future of the country. Those are the people that are going to make the future of the country positive. And I think that, those are the people that we want to set up for success. Folks that, and I don't care, we can call it proven because you just raised your hand. Proven folks that will serve. And again, not in philanthropic needs. It just maybe, but also academia and also business and venture and whatever. We have a bunch of folks that are entrepreneurs. They have a number of companies. We have tech startup folks. But these are the people that will actually be in the position to keep our country exactly where it should be.
Nice. So that's a really beautiful thing considering where we're at today and what's possible if we don't have that as a possible future. So thank God for Commit, your members, the work you're doing with those members, spouses and veterans, IC and military and stuff like that. Because as you started this whole conversation, like they are the future leaders in various fields of human endeavor for the US and then also globally. And we need people like that who can, have a bigger vision, big heart, have done amazing things in the past in terms of service and have that as a driving force, like that ethos that drives them forward. So good. Gives me a little bit more hope for the future of our country and our world. We also talked about some of the work that you do independent of Commit, Resilience Optimized, we co-lead that group, but you also do some writing and other such things. Where can people learn about your books? Where can people learn about the writing you do on a regular basis and the other kind of offerings that you have personally?
Yeah. So, the books are they're all on Amazon, but they're also on Padromos. If you type in Padromos Hatteras, because it's through Hatteras Publishing, but Padromos Books, the website will come up. You can buy the books directly there. I write for Havoc Journal. Yeah. So if you go to Havoc Journal, you'll see a bunch of stuff that I've written there. And then I just want people to reach out. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Instagram. If you want to take a minute to talk and work through something, or there's something that I can help you with, or the organization can help you with, or I'm always available. So reach out to me on a platform, message me. I try to get back to you within a week. I do unfortunately being as busy as we are, sometimes it's slower than I'd like it to be, but that's all on me, and I try to do a better job each time.
And I really want to encourage the listening viewing audience to take you up on the offer, because you are very generous with your time and your heart and your interest in your fellow human beings. So, do reach out to JC and have that kind of conversation if you want. JC, thank you so much for this conversation. It's always good to see you. It's always good to have these kind of conversations. It's nice we actually recorded one for
I know.
others to benefit from.
I know, and I feel like you and I could talk for hours about different things.
And we have.
Yes. Maybe we should record some of those.
Actually, we actually should, but we'll have that conversation offline. Let me stop recording right now.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I got one more thing. Forget about me for a second. If you have an opportunity to hire Michael as a coach, you need to do it, because he is my coach. He is the guy that I use. He is the guy that has, helped get me out of some really tight spots, mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, he is an amazing coach. He is the guy that when I need a coach, he's the guy I go to. So if somebody who's listening, who's like on the fence, like, I listen to Mike, but I don't know, like, pull the trigger, because he is the right guy.
Wow. Usually now left speechless. Thank you. Which is kind of crazy on the podcast. I'll just say thank you, JC. I really appreciate that.